My dear friend, sit with me for a moment. I want to tell you something that has taken me years to understand, something that I wish someone had told me when I was younger, when I was burning myself out trying to save everyone, trying to fix everything, trying to be everything to everyone. You see, I have walked through palaces and slept in streets. I have spoken to kings and sat with beggars. I have been celebrated in grand halls and rejected in places I thought would welcome me. And through all of this, I have learned one truth that changed everything for me. A truth so simple yet so profound that once you grasp it, your entire life will transform. That truth is this: your energy is your life force, and if you do not protect it, the world will drain you until there is nothing left. Listen to me carefully. Right now, as you hear these words, you are probably carrying the weight of other people's opinions. You are probably worried about what someone said to you yesterday, or what someone might think of you tomorrow. You are probably replaying conversations in your mind, wondering if you should have said something different, done something different, been someone different. You are probably exhausted, not from the work you do, but from the emotional burden of trying to please everyone, trying to avoid conflict, trying to keep peace at the cost of your own inner peace. Am I right? Of course I am. Because I have been exactly where you are. When I was traveling across America, speaking in halls filled with thousands of people, do you know what drained me most? It was not the speeches. It was not the travel. It was not even the criticism from those who misunderstood my message. What drained me most were the people who came to me with their negativity disguised as concern, their jealousy disguised as advice, their fear disguised as wisdom. They would say things like, "Swami, you are doing too much. You should be more careful. People are talking about you. You are making enemies. You should tone down your message. You should be more like this guru or that teacher." And if I had listened to every voice, if I had absorbed every opinion, if I had tried to satisfy every criticism, I would have lost myself completely. So I learned to build a shield. Not a shield of arrogance, not a shield of coldness, but a shield of conscious awareness. A shield that allows love to enter, but keeps poison out. A shield that welcomes genuine connection, but repels energy vampires. A shield that honors my soul's purpose above society's approval. And today, I am going to teach you exactly how to build this shield for yourself. Because you deserve to live free. You deserve to wake up each morning with energy coursing through your veins, not anxiety weighing down your chest. You deserve relationships that energize you, not deplete you. You deserve to pursue your dreams without carrying the burden of everyone else's fears and limitations. But before you can claim what you deserve, you must first understand what you've been conditioned to accept instead. From the moment we enter this world, we're taught to be convenient, to fit neatly into the boxes others have prepared for us. Your parents wanted you to be successful by their definition. Your teachers wanted you to be obedient. Your friends wanted you to be available. Society wanted you to be predictable. And somewhere along the way, you learned to make yourself smaller to make others comfortable. You learned to laugh at jokes that weren't funny, to nod along with opinions you didn't share, to say yes when everything inside you screamed no. You learned to apologize for taking up space, for having needs, for existing too loudly in rooms that preferred your silence. This is the disease of people-pleasing, and it spreads through the quiet compromises we make every single day. I'm not speaking of kindness here. Kindness flows from a place of abundance. It's the natural overflow of a heart that is full. But people-pleasing, that comes from a place of fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of being seen as selfish, difficult, or unkind. The people-pleaser gives, not because they want to, but because they're terrified of what might happen if they don't. They smile through discomfort. They carry burdens that aren't theirs to carry. They set themselves on fire to keep others warm, all while pretending they don't smell the smoke. And here's the cruelest part. The very people you're sacrificing yourself for often don't even notice. Or worse, they come to expect it. Your generosity becomes their entitlement. Your flexibility becomes their assumption. Your constant availability becomes your defining feature, until you're no longer a person with your own dreams and desires, you're just a function in someone else's life. Think about it. When was the last time someone asked if your relentless giving was taking a toll on you? When did anyone wonder if you were okay beneath all that smiling and accommodating? They didn't ask because you trained them not to. You performed strength so convincingly that everyone forgot you're human too. You became invisible in your own story. The person who felt the most, who noticed the tremor in someone's voice, who absorbed every unspoken pain in the room, that person got buried under the armor you built. And the tragedy? You didn't even realize it was happening. It felt like growth, it felt like maturity. You told yourself, I'm being selfless, when what you were actually being was self-erasing. I want you to hear this clearly. You were not born to be the shock absorber of other people's chaos. You were not put here to be the unpaid therapist, the eternal cheerleader, the one who holds space for everyone except yourself. This pattern you've been living, it's not love, it's not kindness. It's a survival mechanism dressed up as virtue, and it's quietly destroying you. Because here's what nobody tells you about being the emotionally intelligent one: you stop believing you're allowed to break. You start thinking your needs are somehow less urgent, less valid than everyone else's. Someone texts you at midnight in crisis? You answer. You're exhausted, overwhelmed, drowning in your own problems. Doesn't matter. You show up. Because that's what you do. That's who you are. Except, is it, or is it just who you learned to be when being yourself wasn't safe enough, wasn't good enough, wasn't enough to make them stay? Let me ask you something uncomfortable. What would happen if you stopped? If you just didn't respond immediately, didn't fix it, didn't carry it? Do you feel that flutter of panic even considering it? That fear that they'd leave, that they'd be angry, that you'd be selfish? That fear is not your intuition. That's your conditioning talking. That's the voice of every person who benefited from your silence, your service, your smallness. Real intuition doesn't come wrapped in anxiety. It doesn't arrive with a racing heart and sweaty palms. True intuition is calm, it's clear. It's that quiet knowing that sits in your chest like a stone in still water. When you're truly making the wrong choice, you feel it as discord. A misalignment. Not terror, but a gentle, this isn't it. Like wearing shoes that don't quite fit. Uncomfortable, yes, but not catastrophic. The panic you feel when you consider choosing yourself? That's different. That's the sound of a system losing its control over you. That's the alarm bell that rings when you step outside the invisible fence that was built around you since childhood. I've watched people spend decades in marriages that drained them, in careers that dimmed their light, in friendships that demanded everything and returned nothing, all because the fear of change felt too enormous. All because leaving felt selfish. And here's what I know. Every single person I've seen who finally made that leap, who finally chose themselves, said the same thing afterward. They said, I can't believe I waited so long. They said, the guilt was worse than the actual consequence. They said, the people who truly loved me understood. And the ones who didn't? That told me everything I needed to know. You see, boundary setting is a filter. It shows you who was there for the real you, and who was only there for what you provided. It reveals which relationships were built on genuine connection, and which ones were built on your compliance. Yes, it's painful. Yes, you might lose people. But ask yourself this. Were they ever really yours, if they only wanted the version of you that served them? The relationship you're protecting by staying silent, by staying small, is it even real? Or is it a performance you've been giving for so long that you've forgotten there's a person underneath the costume? Because here's the truth they don't tell you. You cannot have authentic connection without boundaries. It's impossible. Think about it. When you say yes to everything, you're not connecting, you're just broadcasting. You're a radio station that never stops transmitting, never pauses to receive. And the tragic irony is that the very thing you're doing to feel closer to people is the exact mechanism pushing them away. I learned this the hard way. I had a colleague once, brilliant woman, always available for everyone. Weekend emergency? She's there. Late night crisis? Her phone's always on. Someone needed help moving apartments? Count her in. And we all loved her for it, sure. But did we respect her? Did we truly see her as an equal? No. We saw her as a resource. A utility. Someone who existed for our convenience. And the worst part? She could feel it. You could see it in her eyes during meetings, this desperate search for validation that never came. Because respect isn't born from availability. It's born from self-respect first. When you have no boundaries, people can't help but take you for granted. It's not malice. It's human nature. We value what costs us something. The friend who guards their time carefully, when they show up for you, it means something. It carries weight. But the person who's always there? Their presence becomes wallpaper. Familiar, expected, invisible. And here's what really happens in those supposedly close relationships built on boundarylessness. Resentment. It grows quietly, like mold in a damp corner. You're giving and giving, waiting for the reciprocation that matches your output. But it never comes, because you never asked for it. You never created the space for it. You're exhausted, depleted, running on fumes. And then someone asks you for one more favor, and something inside you screams. But you smile. You say yes. And you hate yourself a little more. You resent them a little more. The connection you were trying to build? It's corroding from the inside out. The relationship becomes transactional in the worst possible way. You're keeping score, tallying every unreturned gesture, every unacknowledged sacrifice. But they don't even know the game is being played. How could they? You never told them what you needed. You just kept giving, expecting them to read your mind, to magically understand that your generosity has limits you were too afraid to voice. This pattern, this silent martyrdom, it destroys relationships more effectively than any argument ever could. Because resentment is a slow poison. It doesn't kill immediately. It seeps into every interaction, every conversation, every moment of connection. You smile, but your eyes are cold. You say it's fine, but your voice carries an edge that cuts. You're physically present but emotionally barricaded behind walls of unspoken grievances. And the tragic irony? The people you resent often have no idea they've done anything wrong. They're walking through a minefield they can't see, triggering explosions they don't understand. How could they? You've been performing the role of the eternally accommodating friend, the always available partner, the never complaining family member. You've trained them to expect your endless flexibility, and now you hate them for believing the character you've so convincingly portrayed. I have watched this destroy marriages. I have seen it fracture families. I have observed friendships of decades crumble into awkward distance, all because one person kept score in silence while the other played a game they didn't know existed. Let me tell you what boundaries actually are, because most of you have fundamentally misunderstood them. Boundaries are not walls you build to keep people out. They are not punishments. They are not aggressive acts of selfishness designed to deprive others of your time and energy. Boundaries are clarity. They are honesty. They are the compassionate act of telling people where you end and they begin, what you can offer and what you cannot, what nourishes your soul and what depletes it. When you set a boundary, you are not rejecting a person. You are defining the terms under which the relationship can actually thrive. You are saying, I care about our connection enough to be honest about what I need for it to remain healthy. Without this honesty, relationships become performances. You wear a mask. You smile through resentment. You agree when you want to say no. And over time, the distance between who you are and who you pretend to be grows so wide that you lose yourself entirely in the gap. I have seen this in families, in friendships, in marriages. Two people who once loved each other deeply, now trapped in a dance of unspoken expectations and accumulated disappointments. They think they are preserving the relationship by avoiding conflict, but they are actually suffocating it. Real intimacy requires truth, and truth requires boundaries. Think of a garden for a moment. If you plant seeds without any structure, no fence, no path, no clear space, everything grows wild. Weeds choke the flowers. Roots tangle and compete. Nothing reaches its full potential because there is no order, no intentional design. But when you create boundaries, when you define where one plant ends and another begins, when you give each living thing the space and conditions it needs to flourish, the garden becomes beautiful. Not because you are controlling it with cruelty, but because you are honoring what each element needs to thrive. Your relationships are no different. When you set a boundary with someone, you are not pushing them away. You are creating the conditions under which both of you can grow. You are saying, I will not let resentment build between us. I will not pretend to be someone I am not. I will honor both my needs and yours by being clear about where I stand. And here is the paradox that most people miss. The clearer your boundaries, the closer you can actually get to others. Because when you know where you end and another person begins, you can be fully present with them without fear of losing yourself. You can give generously without depleting your reserves. You can love without anxiety, because you are not constantly monitoring whether you are giving too much or being taken advantage of. This freedom, this is what healthy boundaries truly offer you. Not isolation, but genuine connection. Not selfishness, but sustainable generosity. Not walls that keep people out, but clarity that invites the right people in. And let me tell you something about the people who will challenge your boundaries the most. They will often be the ones closest to you. Your family, who raised you with certain expectations. Your oldest friends, who knew you before you understood your own worth. Your partner, who may have grown accustomed to a version of you that no longer serves your growth. When you begin to change, to establish boundaries where there were none, these people will feel the shift. And some of them, not all, but some will resist. They will call you selfish. They will remind you of who you used to be, of what you used to tolerate. They will test your resolve with guilt, with nostalgia, with the weight of shared history. This is when your practice must be strongest. Because here is what you must understand. People who truly love you will adjust to your boundaries. They may stumble at first. They may need time to understand. They may even feel hurt initially, because change always carries some discomfort. But people who genuinely care for your well-being will ultimately respect the limits you set. They will learn the new language of your relationship. They will meet you where you are, not where you used to be. But those who resist your boundaries consistently, who refuse to honor your needs, who make you feel guilty for having limits, they are showing you something important. They are revealing that they value their access to you more than they value your peace. They prefer the old version of you, not because it was better, but because it was more convenient for them. And this realization, though painful, is also clarifying. It shows you who is in your life to walk beside you, and who is there to use you as a stepping stone. I have watched people lose relationships when they finally established boundaries. Friendships that lasted decades, suddenly dissolving. Family ties growing distant. Romantic partnerships ending. And yes, there is grief in this. There is loss. But I have also watched those same people discover something remarkable on the other side of that loss. They discover that they are not diminished by letting go of the false. They are times liberated. I remember a conversation with a scientist in London. Brilliant mind, decades of research, respected by peers across Europe. He told me something extraordinary. He said, "Swami, for 30 years I believed my worth was in my publications, my citations, my reputation. Then I fell ill. For 6 months, I could do nothing. No lab, no writing, no lectures. I lay in bed, useless by every measure I had ever valued. And in that stillness, I met myself for the first time. Not the scientist, not the achiever, just myself. And I wept, because I realized I had spent 3 decades running from this meeting. Do you see? The self we fear losing was never truly us. It was armor we mistook for skin. This is what I mean when I speak of times real times identity versus times assumed times identity. The real self, what we call the Atman, the soul, the eternal witness, it cannot be diminished. It does not need achievement to exist. It does not require validation to be whole. It simply times is asterisk, like the sun behind the clouds, always present whether we acknowledge it or not. But we spend lifetimes building assumed identities. I am successful, I am a failure, I am loved, I am rejected, I am important, I am invisible. Each one, a costume we wear so long we forget it's not our skin. And when life strips away these costumes through loss, illness, failure, aging, we panic. We think we are disappearing, but we are not disappearing. We are finally being times seen asterisk. The Buddha taught this beautifully. He spoke of anatta, no permanent, unchanging self in the things we cling to. Our bodies change. Our thoughts change. Our roles change. To cling to any of these, as me, is to guarantee suffering, because they will inevitably transform or fade. But beneath this impermanence, there is something unchanging. Not a thing you can grasp, but a presence, an awareness that witnesses all the changes without being changed by them. This is your true identity. Not what you do. Not what others think of you. Not even your own thoughts about yourself. It is the consciousness within which all these experiences arise and pass away. When you touch this, even for a moment, the fear of losing your identity begins to dissolve. Because you realize, how can I lose what I truly am? You see, my friend, the great illusion is not that the world exists. The illusion is that you are only times the small self experiencing it. The wave believes it will die when it crashes upon the shore. But the ocean never dies. The ocean simply takes another form. I have watched people cling desperately to their suffering because at least it is time's familiar asterisk. They know the contours of their pain. They have built their entire identity around their wounds. I am the one who was betrayed. I am the one who failed. I am the victim of these circumstances. And when you offer them freedom, they recoil because who will they be without their story? This is the ultimate paradox. We suffer because of our identification. Yet we fear liberation because it means the death of who we think we are. The caterpillar must die for the butterfly to emerge. But the caterpillar does not see this as transformation, it experiences it as annihilation. Only afterward does the butterfly understand. Nothing was lost. Everything was gained. I remember speaking to a young man in America who said to me, "Swami, I understand what you're saying intellectually, but I cannot feel it. I try to meditate, I try to see myself as pure consciousness, but all I feel is me." This small, anxious, confused me. I smiled and asked him, "When you were a child, where did that child go? When you were an infant, helpless and unknowing, where did that infant disappear to? You do not feel like that infant now. You do not think like that child. Are they dead? Or did they simply dissolve into what you are now?" He paused. They're still here, in some way, as memories, as part of my history. Exactly, I said, they were never separate from you. They were phases, expressions, temporary forms. And so is this current you that you cling to so desperately. It too will dissolve not into nothingness, but into something vaster. The consciousness that was aware of the infant, aware of the child, aware of the young man that does not change. That is what you truly are. Do you see? The body-mind changes every moment. The cells regenerate. The thoughts come and go like clouds across the sky. Even your personality, your preferences, your beliefs, your emotions, all of it shifts with time and circumstance. But the witness remains. The awareness that knows all these changes is eternal. This is why all spiritual practice ultimately points to one thing: disidentification. Not rejection, not denial, but a gentle loosening of the grip. You begin to watch your thoughts instead of being possessed by them. You sit in meditation, and a thought arises: I am anxious. But then, with practice, you realize, wait. If I can observe this anxiety, if I can watch it come and go like a cloud across the sky, then who is the watcher? The anxiety is not you. It is simply a visitor in the house of your consciousness. This shift from, I am anxious, to, there is anxiety present, is revolutionary. It creates space. It restores your sovereignty. You are no longer the puppet of every passing emotion or mental fluctuation. You become the witness, the pure consciousness behind all experience. And here is where the teachings of the Upanishads become intensely practical, not abstract philosophy gathering dust in ancient texts. When you touch this witness consciousness, even for a moment, you experience what the sages called time's Satchitananda, time's existence, consciousness, bliss. Not bliss as mere happiness, which depends on circumstances, but an underlying peace that asks for nothing, needs nothing, because it is already complete. I have felt this in my own life. There were moments, in deep meditation, or in the simple act of watching a sunrise, when the boundaries dissolved. When there was no longer Vivekananda the monk, no longer the body with its aches, no longer the mind with its thousand concerns, only pure being. And in that being, such fullness. Such silence that speaks louder than all the noise of the world. This is your true identity. Not the collection of memories, achievements, failures, and fears you've been carrying. Those are real, yes, in their relative sense, but they are not fundamental. They are the weather, not the sky. They are the waves, not the ocean. And when you truly know this, not intellectually, but experientially, in the marrow of your being, suffering loses its absolute grip. Pain may still come. The body will age, relationships will change, disappointments will arrive at your door. But you will no longer be destroyed by them, because you will know yourself as something that cannot be destroyed. You will know yourself as that which was never born and can never die. As consciousness itself, witnessing the great play of existence with compassion, with wonder, with a kind of divine humor at the cosmic joke we've all been playing on ourselves. This is what the ancient seers meant when they spoke of liberation, of moksha, of enlightenment. Not some escape from the world, but a radical shift in how you experience it. The world remains exactly as it is, full of beauty and tragedy, joy and suffering, but you are no longer imprisoned by your reaction to it. You are the space in which all of it happens. The awareness that welcomes everything without being disturbed by anything. And here is the profound paradox that will make your mind bend back on itself. The moment you truly realize that you are not separate from anything, that you are the ocean itself, playing at being a wave in that very moment, life becomes infinitely more precious, not less. When you know that this form you wear, this particular manifestation of consciousness, is temporary and fleeting, every moment becomes sacred. Every conversation, every sunset, every taste of food, every touch of wind on your skin, all of it becomes a miracle. You see, when you believe you are just this body-mind, just this separate self that will exist forever somehow, you take life for granted. You postpone joy. You postpone love. You postpone living. You think, there will always be time. I will tell them I love them tomorrow. I will pursue my dreams next year. I will be present with my children after this work project is finished. But when you wake up to the truth of your nature, when you understand that this particular expression of consciousness, this unique perspective, this unrepeatable pattern is here for only a brief moment in cosmic time, everything changes. You stop postponing. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You realize that this is the perfect moment because it's the only moment there is. You begin to treat each person you meet as another face of the same consciousness that you are. That difficult colleague, that homeless person on the street, that family member who drives you mad, all of them are you, wearing different costumes, playing different roles in this grand drama. And when you truly see this, genuine compassion arises not as a moral obligation, but as a natural recognition. How can you hate another when you know they are simply another version of yourself, struggling through their own dream, fighting their own shadows? This understanding transforms how we live. The mother who seems to sacrifice everything for her child, is she really sacrificing? No. She sees herself in that child. Her joy is the child's joy. Her well-being is the child's well-being. There is no transaction, no ledger of debts owed. When you know the other is yourself, service becomes as natural as feeding your own body when it hungers. And here is where spirituality becomes intensely practical. People think meditation, prayer, and self-inquiry are escapes from the world. They imagine the spiritual person sitting in a cave, detached from human suffering, unconcerned with injustice. But the opposite is true. The person who knows they are one with all beings becomes the most effective force for change, because their action comes not from ego, not from a desire to be seen as good, but from the simple recognition that suffering is my suffering. That injustice is done to me. Look at the great souls who transformed history. They didn't act from pity. Pity always maintains separation, looking down from above. They acted from identity. They saw themselves in the oppressed, the marginalized, the forgotten. Their compassion was fierce because it was self-compassion. This is why I say, the moment you realize you are the infinite consciousness, you don't become passive. You become dynamically engaged with life, but without the anxiety and fear that usually drives action. You act from fullness, not from lack. You give not to fill some hole in yourself, but because giving is your nature, just as the sun cannot help but shine. But we must be honest about the barriers. The ego fights this understanding with everything it has. It whispers, if there's no individual self, why should I work hard? Why should I strive? This is the ego's last trick, pretending that selflessness means meaninglessness. The truth? When you stop acting from ego, your actions become more powerful, not less. Because now you're aligned with the fundamental force of the universe. You're not pushing against reality, you're flowing with it.